Welcome back. In this section, we're going to be talking about some of the challenges that caregivers and foster parents face when caring for children of incarcerated parents. And we're going to be hearing from some experts who have some ideas and some resources that they'd like to let you know about. There are many considerations when working with families who have an incarcerated family member. One is economic. Most parents who are incarcerated have worked and brought in money to support the family's income prior to incarceration. Additionally, there's emotional effects, a sense of loss, regardless of whether there's been safety concerns often. There's also a strain on family relationships due to the fact that there is an individual who is no longer present, and so family relationships are often reorganized, at least partially at that point. In addition, families often experience social and community stigma as a result of having an incarcerated family member. There are also significant legal consequences for those who are incarcerated and for those convicted of crimes that impact their ability to stabilize themselves after release. And this does affect the family and their ability to have safety and stability. So as social workers, as social service providers, we need to know about what resources and what tools we have in order to effectively serve these families. And now I'm going to turn it over to David Rendon, Office Chief of Programs and Policy for Community Service Division of ESA at DSHS. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. The Community Services Division provides cash, medical, food, telephone subsidy, and child care assistance for low-income families in Washington State. I just want to provide you with some of the highlights of what we provide and how children and families of incarcerated parents might qualify for these programs. We have the monthly cash assistance in the form of temporary assistance for needy families. These grants are for the non-incarcerated parent who must meet financial eligibility criteria and participate in the Work First program. Both parent and child must be citizens or legal immigrants. Non-needy or child-only grants to relatives or to other adults caring for the child while the parent is incarcerated. The relative caregiver, in this case, does not need to meet financial criteria unless they want to be included in the grant. They also do not need to participate in Work First. If the caregiver is not related to the child, they cannot be included in the grant and must pass a criminal background check. Only the child must be a citizen or legal immigrant. For medical assistance, all TANF recipients are eligible for medical assistance. In the case of non-needy or child-only grants, only the child receives the medical assistance. Under the Governor's Apple Health for Kids program, all children in families with income up to 250% of the federal poverty level are eligible for medical assistance, regardless of citizenship or immigration status. 250% of the federal poverty level is $3,667 per month for a family of 3. Medical assistance applications do not require a face-to-face interview. Most requests are processed by mail. Work First participation requirements do not apply to family, pregnancy, or children's medical-only programs. Requests for children's medical can also use a shorter version of the DSHS application form. Children's medical requires only birth verification and Social Security number for the child and verification of family income. For relative caretakers or non-needy cases, only the child's income is counted. We also provide monthly food assistance through the state's basic food program. Families that prepare food together may be eligible for food assistance. Recipients must be citizens or legal residents. The income eligibility threshold is set at 200% of the federal poverty level, or $2,934 for a family of 3. You can find out more about the program, estimate your monthly benefits, or apply online for food benefits at www.foodhelp.wa.gov. We also have the Washington Telephone Assistance Program. This program provides a discount on local telephone service including the cost of connection and waiver of the deposit requirements. It also provides a community service voice mailbox through a community contractor. The program is available to all recipients of Community Services Division's cash, medical, and food assistance programs. Another program we have is the Working Connections Child Care Program. It provides subsidized child care for low-income working families. It is subject to copays based on a sliding scale. If the caregiver is not the biological parent, the copay is based only on the child's income. The income eligibility threshold for Working Connections child care is set at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. For biological parents living in the same household, both parents must be working or in an improved activity. Care may be authorized for the time when both parents are unavailable to care for the child or children. For relative caregivers receiving a non-needy grant, only one adult in the household must be working. Child care may be provided at a licensed facility, family home, and in some instances the child or relative's home. We also have specialized programs. One is the residential parent program at Purdy. DSHS subsidizes the residential parent program at the Washington Correctional Center for Women with a supplied shelter-only grant of $212 for a single child and medical assistance for the child. The grant is paid into a trust fund that is controlled by the Correctional Center and is used to meet the child's needs during his or her residence there. To participate, the inmate must be pregnant at the time of incarceration, in minimum custody, and eligible for release prior to her child's reaching 30 months of age. We also have the expedited medical assistance for adults, also known as HB 1290. In 2006, the Department of Social and Health Services began assisting persons with mental health issues access DSHS benefits and services upon release from jails, prisons, and psychiatric hospitals by beginning their application process when they are still confined. The goal is to help these clients get access to benefits and services such as needed medications immediately upon release. A DSHS website allows correction staff at adult prisons and county detention centers to make system inquiries to determine if an inmate has a history of Medicaid receipt. This web tool assists the correctional staff in identifying and prioritizing their referrals for DSHS for medical services. We also have another program called the Expedited Medical Assistance for Youth, also known as HB 1088. In May of 2007, Governor Gregoire signed into law House Bill 1088 to expand and improve publicly funded mental health services for children, including children in the juvenile justice system. The legislation requires the Department of Social and Health Services to work in partnership with county juvenile courts to quickly connect eligible youth with publicly funded health care, including Medicaid, upon their release from a juvenile detention facility. In each of the 6 service delivery regions for ESA, there is one office that works with juvenile detention facilities in the region to receive and quickly process applications for medical assistance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we will be speaking with Ora MacArthur from Division of Child Support at ESA, who will be speaking about financial supports via child support.
Thanks, Mary,
Thank
very
you.
much for having me. It's good to see you again. I'm here actually hoping to plant a seed for the social workers that are out watching this program. When you're talking to relative caregivers about the resources, specifically financial resources that are available for them to use, some of the programs that are out there, like David mentioned, are cash grants, medical grants. Relative caregivers will become licensed foster parents to be able to get those resources. And in any of those circumstances, a child support case will automatically be opened up if they collect a cash grant, a medical grant, or they receive money from foster care in that way. But one of the things that you may not know is that parents and relatives that are out there, grandparents, they can ask for our services directly. They can send in an application, and we will open up a child support case. We will establish paternity, create a child support order, and collect child support for them to use in helping to raise their family member. Or sometimes it's just a neighbor or someone that they know in their community. So I'd like to let people know about that. If you'd like more information, please go to the resource page. We have all sorts of links and ways that you can get to the application and share that with them.
Thank you so much for that important information. And now we will hear from Hillary Hauptman of Kinship Care, Relatives as Parents Program of Aging and Disability Services Administration. Hello, Hillary.
Hi, Mary.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. So as we know, there are many children who find themselves living with their relatives as their one or two parents are incarcerated. For these relatives, often there's very little notice, and it's often very overwhelming to understand the DSHS system. Fortunately, thanks to support from the Washington State Legislature, we have some supports that can provide some relief. We now have 8 full-time kinship navigators that cover over 30 counties in our state. And these navigators can be those special one-stop shops where this person can help both emotionally as well as factually share where the resources are, how to apply for resources and services, and also how to advocate if there are problems that relatives find. We also have a lot of support groups, about 40 in our state, where relatives, and oftentimes their children, can come on a weekly or monthly basis, and together with other families, other relatives, these grandparents and children know that they're not alone, that there are other people who are also struggling with grief and loss, and perhaps struggling on a day-to-day basis with parenting issues. We're lucky also to have a DSHS Kinship Care website, which has a lot of information, the ability for relatives to apply online for services. There's information about legal resources. People can download publications, and they can even watch a legal video online. We're also fortunate to have quite a few printed resource materials. Through Children's Administration, as you may know, there are 2 resources that are very valuable. There's one called A Relative's Guide to Child Welfare Services, and then another one called Education Advocacy for Caregivers, which is helpful for relatives both in and outside of the formal child welfare system. We're fortunate to have a guide to child support services for relative caregivers, which helps to explain further the child support system that we just heard about. The Northwest Women's Law Center has a legal guide, which is especially helpful for relatives who perhaps now have a closed case with the formal child welfare system or aren't yet in the child welfare system, and they're trying to seek legal options. There's also a resource guide for relatives as parents, which covers both public and private resources. We also have many trainings and conferences throughout the state where regional kinship collaborations put on a one-day, sometimes it's an overnight retreat for relatives. There's also an annual training for facilitators called Parenting a Second Time Around, which helps leaders in their communities put on 6-week series to help relatives with parenting issues and with many of the discipline issues that are different now than when they were perhaps raising their own children. So we're hopeful that with all of these different resources and supports and kinship navigators that both social workers and relatives can find more support for their many questions that they have. And in addition, there can be some financial supports available both for visitation and for contact that Department of Corrections can provide.
Thank you. And we will hear more about that in terms of DOC resources and supports at the upcoming partner agency panel. And now, thank you so much. Now we will hear from Carolyn Jones of Children's Administration, who will speak with us about some supports for foster parents who are caring for children of incarcerated parents.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So knowledge is power. And we know statistically that the more knowledge that a caregiver has to meet the needs of the children in their care, the longer they will be able to sustain that child successfully. It's very important for us to offer training not only to our foster parents, but to our caregivers, relative caregivers as well. So what I'm about to say really applies to both the foster parents and the relative caregivers who've chosen not to become licensed foster parents. We're really fortunate in the state, along with many other states in the country, to offer a pre-service training program called PRIDE, and it's the creation of the Child Welfare League of America. And within this 27-hour course, we are able to deliver a myriad of topics to foster parents and caregivers. There are 5 competencies that we strive to offer in that, so that a caregiver will learn how to create and sustain a nurturing and safe environment for the child, staying on top of developmental needs. And number 3, and one of the most important things, is helping the child stay in touch with their biological family, which is really relevant to our conversation here today. The next one would be to help children learn how to build relationships beyond their biological family to last a lifetime. And then the fifth would be to become part of the child welfare team. We have a construct right now in the state which is a really interesting and helpful construct for foster parents, and that's called the hubs. Now, a hub is a senior or more seasoned caregiver who agrees to mentor and support newer foster parents coming into the community, kind of like the hub and then the spokes of a wheel. And within the hubs, we have training offered on monthly or quarterly basis, depending on when they meet. That would vary around the state. But the hubs are an excellent source of training and support. Also, child care, they kind of trade off and offer respite for each other. And so that's a really important thing when you're fostering children. We also have a lot of training offered on the Resource Family Training Institute website, which is fosterparent.dshs.wa.gov, and that will be in your resource linkage at the end of this program. We'd also like to encourage caregivers to attend the Foster Parent Caregiver Conference, which is held annually. We move it around the state so that, it's never in the same place twice, and we really strive to make that a fun, multi-day experience for caregivers. But again, it's not just socialization, it's all about training. It's about information being power, and we know our foster parents stay as foster parents longer when they receive adequate training, and we know that caregivers will find it less of a struggle to care for the needs of their children if they're receiving up-to-date information about discipline and child development and the other things that are so very important to caring for our children.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
And just as a reminder, all the resources that presenters are referring to are available on the resource list. So click that link to make sure to see those resources. And that concludes this segment.